Will you be voting on the election in October?
Yes. I've done a lot of research and I'll probably vote Conservative.
I have in the past, but I don't think I'll vote for them. It will be Liberal or NDP, or maybe even Green for a change. But certainly not CPC.
Why not?
I'm disappointed with their economic record. I hope they would do much better.
But Canada has repeatedly leading the G7 and has had steady economic growth even through the international downturn.
But some have said Harper has the worst economic record for many years.
Don't they actually live in Canada? Where did you hear that?
From a commentator on the CBC.
Of course.
But he didn't live up to what he said. He originally campaigned on balanced budgets and reduced debt.
And that's exactly what he has been working towards.
But he had a surplus for 2 years, then after that was 8 years of deficits.
And?
And what?
Aren't you going to tell the rest of the story?
That's it. Harper turned the surplus into a deficit for 8 years.
You're older than me. Don't you remember how the deficit started?
He paid off his corporate friends, no doubt.
The Liberals, the NDP and the Bloc all formed a coalition and threatened to launch a non-military coup to overturn the results of the recent election and seize power.
So?
As a condition to prevent that, they made a ridiculous demand that Harper immediately throw a staggering $50 billion into stimulus spending, or they would force him out.
So?
He could have refused and gone to the Governor General to request a new election. Polls showed that he would have won a huge majority if he did, because public was so mad at the coup attempt.
But he didn't. So who cares?
He wasn't interested in a quick power grab like the Lib coalition was. So much to their surprise, he agreed to their demand for the immediate $50 billion stimulus.
You can't really blame the deficits on that.
Do you live under a rock? At the time, there was a $10 billion surplus. The very next budget had a massive $40 billion deficit.
Yes. We all remembered it well. How on earth can anyone turn a $10 bill surplus into a $40 bill deficit almost overnight?
Have you already forgotten about the stimulus? If you have a $10 billion surplus, then suddenly throw in $50 billion of unplanned spending, what does that leave you with?
Obviously, that would leave you with a $40 billion deficit. Oh wait. I was almost ready to start swearing.
Don't do that. CBC will make breaking headlines about a private citizen hurling profanities.
Ha. They won't do that unless I could be described as a Stephen Harper supporter.
Oh. I forgot. What if you put a sign in your car window or a t-shirt on a toddler with an obscene message about Harper?
They will just turn a blind eye to that and pretend they didn't notice.
I'm glad to see they're earning their tax dollars.
So, about the deficit. It might have been started by the stimulus, but that was 8 years ago. Why is it still here now?
It's not. It's been eliminated and is currently fluctuating on the line between deficit and surplus.
Okay, 7 years maybe. But my question remains. Why so long?
Harper has always been accused of making reckless cuts, even when he wasn't. To eliminate a staggering $40 bill deficit in just 1 or 2 years would take a massive amount of cuts that would never get approved as a minority government.
Go on.
So he set a course to gradually whittle it down to nothing over this time period so any cuts would have minimal impact on the public. And he managed to achieve that, while going through a major global recession even though opposition was calling for even more spending on various programs. To reverse such a huge deficit over that time with such little impacts is nothing short of remarkable.
Yes, well, Duffy.
Oh, give me a break. The war cry of liberals hoping to hide from the facts.
You mean the fact that he falsely expensed $90,000?
You mean the $90,000 that he paid back?
Well, yes. But there's questions about how it got repaid. Scandal.
Any questions about Liberal Senator Mac Harb and the nearly $250,000 he falsely expensed?
That's not as bad.
Why? Because $250,000 isn't as bad as $90,000? Especially when he refused to pay it back in any way at all?
Huh? No. Because Mac's a liberal. Duffy's a conservative. The more bad press about him, the more it can be blamed on Harper. Oh wait, I didn't mean to say that. You're not filming this for YouTube, are you? Anyway, there are about 19 senators under police investigation, although, I'm surprised CBC isn't making a bigger deal out of it. I thought they'd be all over it like they are for Duffy.
Could it have anything to do with the fact that, like Mac Harb, most of them are liberals? The only ones reported on are the 3 or 4 conservatives.
It does seem a bit strange, and didn't Harper say he wouldn't appoint in senators? He has appointed lots of them. Clearly he was stacking the Senate to be biased in his favor, and make it nothing more than a puppet for him.
You really should do a bit more research before blindly repeating that claim like the sheep do.
What do you mean? It's supposed to be a chamber of sober second thought, to keep government accountable. How can it be worth anything when it's so heavily stacked in government's favor?
You'll have to ask the liberals that question. They're the ones who stacked it to the point of being meaningless.
Huh?
They had it so badly stacked that all it would do was agree every time. Nothing the liberals did would be rejected by the Senate. When Harper got in, the Senate was so heavily against him that for the first few months government was virtually stalled, as the Senate held up every single thing he did for nothing more than petty partisan reasons. He had no choice but to try and balance it out to get government working again.
Provide the links and proof, or you're talking a load of nonsense.
If you're too lazy to look up the publicly available facts, don't come running to me to hold your hand and do it for you. Out of 104 senators, Pierre Trudeau stacked it to a huge bias of 72 members on government side. Brian Mulroney managed to balance it out to 58 on government side. Chrétien Martin restacked it to almost 70 again. Most of Harper's appointments were simply to restore balance and fairness. He took it to a high of 68, but currently there's only 48 on government side. The Senate has never been as fair and balanced as it is right now under Harper.
Gosh, no one's mentioned those numbers before. You must be a troll, paid by the CPC.
No.
You've been corrupted by the riches you get from the oil industry.
I'm a cook. Just above minimum wage.
Racist. You support a war on women. You want to burn all the oil and kill the trees.
Stop. Just stop. You're sounding a lot like the people you're thinking of voting for.
But these are the things I see on Twitter. What am I supposed to think?
Maybe you should educate yourself and get informed with facts like I did, rather than be swayed by smears that are completely false. I did the research, and I've made my decision on how to vote.